We all know and love the famous Le Mans cars from Ferrari, Ford, Porsche, and Audi, the absolute legends of the last 100+ years. But there is one car that everybody overlooks. One car that came from a manufacturer that never really had that much experience. A manufacturer that achieved the ultimate Le Mans goal, and yet nobody remembers them for it. This is the story of BMW's efforts at Le Mans with the V12 LMR. Germany has been immensely successful at the 24 Hours of Le Mans, with 34 wins across Mercedes, Audi, and Porsche. But BMW has always had other things on their mind, mainly touring cars and Formula 1 as an engine constructor. But they did dabble at the Circuit de la Sarthe once in a while. They first raced at Le Mans in 1937 and had a horrific accident involving several cars. An accident that caused them to sit out in 1938, but they came back strong in 1939 with the 328. The 328 was a proven winner, having won the Mille Miglia and the RAC Rally, among other events around the world. And thanks to its 79 horsepower, 2-liter inline six, it won its class and finished 5th overall. And then it was all downhill from there, because that would be the best result for decades. Yeah, BMW had some hard times after World War II, since they were working for the Nazis in one way, shape, or form as a jet engine supplier. After the war, they nearly went bankrupt, and they had to focus on survival, not racing. They wouldn't return until 1972 with the privateer 3-liter CSLs. Now the CSLs and the M1s did okay, but they were well off the pace of the consistently dominant Porsche 935. Then as the 80s turned into the 90s, BMW was contacted by McLaren to make a naturally aspirated V12 for their new supercar. And what BMW built turned out to be one of the greatest engines in automotive history, a naturally aspirated, all-aluminum 6.1-liter V12 making 618 horsepower and 480 torque. It was the lightest road-going V12 ever made to that point at just 584 pounds with exhaust. It's a masterpiece of individual throttle bodies, Nickel-coated cylinder bores, and carbon fiber. McLaren had to line the F1's engine bay and goal like a NASA rocket in order to tame the immense heat that it produced. Now, despite the fact that Gordon Murray designed one of the greatest cars ever built, with one of the greatest engines ever built, he never actually intended to race the F1. It was always designed to be the perfect road car. But after 2 years of customer pressuring, the F1 GTR was built for the 1995 FIA GT1 class, and it dominated, winning the BPR Global GT Championship twice in a row, and that led it to Le Mans. The road car may very well have been the fastest production car in the world, but against purpose-built prototypes, it was 11 seconds off the top qualifying time. But then Mother Nature did McLaren a solid. It rained for almost the entire event, and all of a sudden, the power advantage of the prototypes suddenly didn't matter. And against all odds, the F1 scored 1st, 3rd, 4th, and 5th on their debut. The only other time in Le Mans history that a manufacturer had that much success first try was Ferrari in 1948. It was an incredible achievement and an incredible outlier, because the TWR95s and the Porsche 911 GT1s simply outclassed the F1 GTRs 1996 and 1997. Even the streamlined long-tail variants weren't enough to achieve outright victory despite their best efforts. So now you're wondering, well, what the hell did this McLaren tangent have to do with anything? Well, it was to establish that they had a fantastic race engine that was Le Mans winning worthy, and they didn't want it to go to waste. So BMW decided to ditch McLaren and jump from GT1 to the new LMP1 prototype class. The result would be the 1998 V12 LM, co-designed by the Williams Formula One team fresh off the World Championship. Williams would design the aerodynamics, pushrod suspension, and carbon fiber chassis, while BMW would provide funding and a modified version of the S70 V12 called the S70-3. It was detuned per LMP1 rules to 6 liters and 550 horsepower, but since it didn't have to be road legal, it now weighed just 320 pounds. In fact, since Williams had built the LM as essentially a 2-seater F1 car, it weighed a minuscule 1,984 pounds. So the V12 LM sounds very impressive. Less than 2,000 pound curb weight, a legendary Le Mans winning engine, and a pretty light one at that with aerodynamics from the Formula One team. And too bad it wasn't very impressive. The LM had a serious cooling problem and strange driving characteristics, so at Le Mans this translated to being 3.3 seconds off the top pace of the fastest cars. And they wouldn't even be able to pull a McLaren underdog story, since both cars reported severe vibrations in the drivetrain and retired by lap 60. The LM was a mess, but it was a mess with potential if they could just fix the aerodynamics. So Williams and N Division restarted from scratch and built the entire body all over again. Now the biggest change was the roll hoop. The rules say that there must be a bar behind the driver in case of a rollover, but they did not state just how big that bar had to be as long as it met crash safety requirements. So BMW's new roll hoop was only on the driver's side, not the whole cockpit. This improved airflow over the rear wing and reduced the overall drag coefficient. But other than the new skin, the LMR, as it was called, had the same chassis, and then the same engine as the LM, now making 580 horsepower, so it was just a significantly reskinned LM. So would it have the same result? Well, no. At its shakedown for Le Mans, the 1999 12 Hours of Sebring, BMW converted pole position to their first overall Sebring win since 1975. Now BMW knew they had the pace to win a major endurance event, but the competition at Le Mans was much fiercer, with new arrivals in the form of the Mercedes CLR and the Toyota GT1. That meant BMW was again stuck in third for qualifying, 1.3 seconds off Toyota's pole position. But as the race began, BMW's fortunes began to change as the strategy element began to come into effect. See, BMW had better fuel economy, and that meant they could go longer on stints than Toyota, giving them an overall edge. Because remember, Le Mans is a marathon, not a sprint. And when that didn't work, just let everybody else break down. Because Mercedes, Nissan, Audi, and Toyota all crashed out or retired with mechanical failures. BMW wasn't alone with that. They started out with 3 cars in qualifying, then started the race with 2, and then the leading number 17 crashed out with throttle problems. This was a very attrition-heavy event, and that made it a 2-horse battle between the lone surviving Toyota and the lone surviving BMW. The number 15 BMW had a 1-lap advantage over the number 3 Toyota, but their driver Yukio Katayama was pushing and closing the gap fast. But in typical Toyota fashion, his tire blew out like the other 2 Toyotas that year, and just like that, BMW scored their first and only win at the Circuit de la Sarthe. But here's the weird thing. BMW came, they conquered, and nobody remembers because their victory celebrations were overshadowed by one of their other German rivals, Mercedes. Their new CLRs were specifically designed for Le Mans that year, with maximum front and rear overhangs for maximum aerodynamic advantage. But if you're, say, I don't know, cresting a hill behind traffic, the front end can get a little bit light. Well, the CLR's front got too light, and 2 of the 3 cars that Mercedes brought that weekend decided to become an airplane service, and took off into the sky. The spectacular and thankfully victimless Mercedes flights led to significant rule changes and significant press coverage, so whenever people remember the 1999 Le Mans, the CLRs always come up first. Mercedes left sports car racing after the accidents and haven't come back since, and they weren't the only ones. BMW fought hard for the American Le Mans Championship that year, but lost out to the front-engine Pinot's LMP1s by 2 points. After that, BMW all but retired their sports car program. I mean, they kinda ran a team in 2000, which scored 2 wins, but Audi's era of dominance had arrived in full, and BMW finished in a distant 2nd place. But the S70 did get one last chance to shine. In the BMW X5. Yeah, the SUV. In order to celebrate the new launch of their X5 SUV, they stuffed a 700 horsepower, de-restricted S70 under the hood of their SUV. It was essentially a BMW supervan, so to the average person it looked like any normal X5, except for the roll cage and 5-point harness and hood vent heat extractor, and some more subtle bodywork tweaks than that. But the X5 LM could do 60 miles an hour in 4.7 seconds and reach over 180 miles an hour in a box from 2000. A demo run for Evo magazine clocked it at 7 minutes and 50 seconds at the Nürburgring, which is faster than the M3 CSL from 2003. And with that, BMW had their fun. They wanted to win Le Mans, and they did, so they had nothing left to prove. And their decision to become the Williams F1 engine supplier full-time definitely helped their decision-making process. But here's the thing. Normally the story would end right here, right now, but things have changed in the last few months. The FIA is desperately trying to claw back manufacturers for Le Mans, since Toyota's the only one actually competing right now. And the new GTP hypercar rules they made are aimed to bring Le Mans back to its 90s era of glory. And so far, they have a pretty impressive list of Acura, Alpine, Cadillac, Ferrari, Guggenhaus, Lamborghini, Peugeot, Porsche, Toyota, and BMW have signed on to race by either 2023 or 2024. BMW's new M Hybrid V8 was designed by M Division and built by Dallara. It has a 671 horsepower hybrid V8 based off their old DTM program, and unlike the road-going BMWs, it actually makes the massive grills work really well. It's a great-looking prototype, far better than Toyota or Porsche that have come up with for their hypercar vehicles. Its first race is going to be the 2023 Rolex 24 at Daytona. Will it be a success? Honestly, I don't know. They have a lot of competition from much more well-versed endurance racing teams, but there's only one way to find out.